Hey guys, it's John here from Sonic Drive Studio. I hope you're all doing well. Today we're going to compare 3 reactive loads or load boxes. These are the ones that I have in my studio, and they are very different when it comes to the tone, but especially when it comes to the features. We've got the RedSeven Amplification Amp Central reactive load, the Two Notes Captor X 8 ohm edition, and the Fractal Audio LB-2 X-Load. In this video, I'm going to talk a little bit about the differences between these units when it comes to the feature sets, but we're also going to compare the sound of the basic reactive load functions of these units. Let's start by taking a look at how they differ when it comes to the features. So the RedSeven Amplification Amp Central is my current main reactive load of choice. It's just a great sounding load box that works well with a very wide variety of amplifiers, which obviously suits my needs. Any amp that I put through it just sounds good, basically. It's not only a good reactive load, but it also has some great features, such as a stereo effects loop, XLR outs, a built-in IR loader, and also MIDI control that enables you to switch IRs during a live performance, for example. And not only does it have an XLR out, it also has a jack DI out with a separate level control, and that's the one that I use basically always in the studio, so I use this as a passive reactive load. There's also a little switch up front that lets you switch from the reactive load sound to a resistive load sound. For me, that sound is a bit more old school and less desirable. It sounds less realistic, basically. So I'm just going to stick with the reactive load sound because it sounds great on this unit. So overall, it's just a great load box with some cool additional features. I did a full demo and review of this thing on the channel a while ago, which you can watch up here or down here if you're interested, by the way. The Two Notes Captor X is a very popular load box. It has a lot of features on it as well. This thing actually has a Bluetooth connection, so you can connect it to your phone and control all the features via the dedicated app. It has built-in IR loading, of course, and when you buy one of these, you get a bunch of Two Notes cabinets with it. And there's also a bunch of cool effects in here, like an equalizer, a noise gate, a stereo widener, room reverb, and all sorts of cool stuff. And on top of that, you can also use this as a basic attenuator for your amplifier, but it does only have 3 settings, so it's not super flexible. So it's definitely a very versatile device. It's feature packed. I don't think that the primary reactive load sound by itself is very good. It's not as good as the other two, in my opinion, for my personal taste anyway. The low end is a bit lacking and the overall tone is a little bit flat, but they did do that on purpose. Because you can go into the app and tweak everything to your liking, add some low end, scoop or boost some mids and all that stuff. So it's all about personal preference, really. Just keep in mind that with the Captor X you may need to spend a little bit more time to get the tone to where you want it to be. It's a bit more of a tweaker load box when you compare it to the other two. That doesn't have to be a bad thing, of course. It all depends on your personal preference. The Fractal LB-2 X-Load is the most straightforward of the bunch. I used this on the channel for years with my amplifiers. It's just a very solid, sturdy, and reliable reactive load. It doesn't have a lot of features, but it has 2 voicings. It has the US and the UK voicing. The UK voicing is basically an impedance curve of a V30 speaker, or I guess a 4x12 cabinet with a V30 speaker. And the US voicing is basically a small Fender combo or something like that. I never use the US voicing, I always use the UK voicing because it sounds bigger. On the back you've got an XLR out and a jack out, and that's basically it. So it's very simple and straightforward. And it sounds good and it works fine. So again, all about personal preference. So they all are pretty solid and great devices in their own right. If you're looking for a reactive load, definitely go ahead and compare all the differences when it comes to the features. So I think it's important to figure out for yourself how you're going to use it, in what situations, and what sort of features do you need. I use mine in the studio, and I basically always do the IR processing in my XFX3 or the DAW, so I don't need a lot of features, I just need a reactive load that sounds good. But for things like live performances and stuff like that, you might need a load box with a bunch of features that can make your life easier, or that just help you with being more creative. So I'm going to repeat this again. It's all about personal preference when it comes to the features. Now let's go ahead and see how they compare sonically, but just the basic reactive load function. So we're not going to use the built-in processing. All the IR loading will be done externally. Let's start with a classic amplifier, but a low wattage amplifier. This 20 watt Marshall, the SC20H JCM 800 Studio. And I'm going to play my Gibson Les Paul Standard 60s with the Seymour Duncan pickups through this thing. And for the cap tones for this tone, I'm going to use the York Audio MRSH 412 MV30 cabinet package. And I'm going to use the A speaker option on Mic Mix 01, which is a blend between a 57 and a 121 mic. And I'm running the IRs in my XFX3's cab loader. Let's go ahead and take a listen to this comparison right now. Okay, interesting. With this amplifier in this comparison, the differences are noticeable, but not huge. The RedSeven, which came first, sounds pretty smooth and it has a nice bottom and top end, so it's a very balanced and natural sounding load. When we compare that pure load sound to the Captor X, the Captor X sounds a little bit more flat and a bit more mid-forward with less low end. The Fractal sounds kind of similar to the RedSeven here, but the low end is a bit more extended and it has a bit more upper mid-range bite. Now let's check out that same comparison, but this time with just the guitars. Okay, now let's check out some heavy high gain tones with my EVH 5153 50W 6L6 amplifier. I wanted to use this amplifier because it has a lot of gain on tap. It obviously sounds more modern than the Marshall, and it also has a very big low end. I'm going to use the red channel on this amplifier with my ESP LTD Phoenix Arctic Metal. And for the cab tones, I'll use the York Audio 5153 412 VH20 cabinet, also on Mic Mix 01. Let's go ahead and check it out right now. Okay, the differences definitely are becoming more apparent now with this amplifier. I'm not sure if that's because of the wattage of this amplifier versus the wattage of this amplifier, or just the fact that this one has more gain and more low end, but the differences definitely are less subtle. Let's go ahead and also check out that comparison in an isolated setting. Okay, so the RedSeven Amplification Amp Central Reactive Load has a nice low end with thick low mids and a nice and smooth upper mid range and top end. Again, it just sounds nicely balanced and very natural to my ears. The Captor X has less low end, obviously, a bit more of a flat tone basically, and a bit more mid forward. The Fractal LB-2 has a bit more of an extended low end, so it seems to go a little bit lower on the low end resonance, and the upper mid range also has a bit more cut and bite to it than the RedSeven, for example. So I guess you could say this is the most scoop sounding one with a lot of low end and a nice mid-range bite. This one sounds the most even and balanced with a nice smooth upper mid-range and a good solid bottom end. And the Captor X just sounds a bit more flat with less low end basically. So which one sounds the best and which one should you get? Well, again, all of that depends on your personal preference. You can definitely make all of them sound good, but with the RedSeven and the Fractal, it will just take a little bit less effort because it just has less features and the primary reactive load sound is just a bit better than the Captor X, for example. However, the Captor X definitely is great and it has a lot of features, so you can really shape the tone to your liking. You just gotta go in that app and start tweaking. So it will take a little bit more effort to get the tone out of it that you need, basically. The Fractal is a very simple device, but it is great and it has a great and solid tone to it. The more pronounced low end and upper mid-range bite can sometimes be a little bit too much for my taste though. The extended low end is kind of cool sounding and it sounds huge, but that area of the frequency spectrum is usually what I end up cutting a bit in the mix anyway. But again, it's just a very solid load for the studio. The RedSeven is a great and very professional option. I like to use this one a lot in my studio nowadays. I use it because I just really like how it sounds with all of my amplifiers. It has something to it that just makes it very versatile. It never sounds harsh or thin, it just always does the job and it always sounds natural to my ears. The stereo effects loop is a nice and unique touch, and the built-in IR loading is also very handy, especially for live performances. So just to repeat what I already said, it's all about your personal preference and it's just about what you need to get out of your reactive load. I hope this video was helpful. Definitely let me know in the comments down below what your thoughts are and which reactive load you would choose and which one sounded the best to your ears. Or if you have another great reactive load, let us know in the comments down below as well. That's all for this video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please consider hitting the like and subscribe buttons along with the notification bell, as that really helps the channel out. I'd really appreciate that. And you can also follow Sonic Drive Studio on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I hope to see you soon. Cheers!